and I'm going to keep this same position. All right, man, let's see what our guy JD Vance got to say. I know I stopped it halfway through in the last stream, but let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's go ahead and pop up where we left off.
And it showed him a map of where to find hospice fraud. And his selling point of him taking action was a moratorium on hospice centers and the closing down of 287 centers over 4 years.
Yep.
I heard you've closed down 800 hospice. How are you able to do in 2 months what he did a fourth of in 4 years?
By doing our jobs. Again, this is not rocket science. The fraud is right there for everybody to see. I'll give you a crazy statistic. We closed down 800 fraudulent hospice centers. Think about this. If you're running a business and the federal government closes down your main source of revenue, do you write a letter? Do you make a phone call? 780 of those that we've closed down, we haven't even heard a single thing from anybody. That's how bad the fraud is. They can't even make an argument that they weren't engaged in fraud, so to the point that when we shut them down, they wouldn't even pick up the phone and try to turn those services back on. We've just looked where nobody else has been looking, whether it's Gavin.
And that was the main exposure. That was the main thing that exposed a lot of these hospices, when they pretty much closed the funding and they said, look, if you could just verify your services, you'll get it right back with Backpay. Just go ahead and verify. A lot of them was so fraudulent, they didn't even try. They was like, look, bro, you cut the faucet off, bro. I'm not even going to try. And that's how a lot of fraudsters do it. It's like, once you ask them to verify information, I mean, shoot, they was happy they was able to get off for like the last 2-3 months, maybe a year or so. They're just going to walk away with their winnings at that point. So that's what sucks about it, though, is the fact that, well, really, it wasn't really being looked into. And here's the craziest part. It was quite obvious to figure out. All you had to do was just ask these guys to verify their services that are being provided. And they didn't. While the Dems were sitting there complaining, going like, but look, you're shutting down funding. We need the funding. Yeah, but they're not trying to, verify the services that they claim they're providing. So I don't even know why y'all even sticking up defending these guys.
Or anybody else. And by the way, Kaylee, one of the things that we're trying to take very seriously, we're not going to prejudge the legal outcome, but when you tell me that, when I hear about a report that says to the governor, here's all this fraud and he doesn't do anything about it, I ask myself, was anybody engaged in criminal wrongdoing? Was anybody in his office engaged in criminal wrongdoing? Again, I'm not going to say yes, but I am going to promise the American people we're going to look into that stuff, we're going to investigate it, and we're going to take it seriously, because if there was criminal wrongdoing, then people ought to go to prison for it.
I understand the facts have to match the law.
Exactly.
I understand you're not the DOJ, but state level, state official prosecutions, I mean, you're taking this seriously, that you will follow the facts here.
100%. In Minnesota, in California, and a number of the other states where some of which we've gotten started, some of which we haven't even gotten started yet, we are aggressively investigating. Let me give you just one statistic, something I'm very proud of, because I think it shows the pace of DOJ. And the Attorney General, Todd Blanche, is working with us. He's doing a great job. Is normally it would take, you discover the fraud in Minneapolis, it would take 6 months to go from that discovery to any kind of legal process. We served 22 subpoenas 2 months after that fraud ring was discovered in Minneapolis at the federal level. Yeah. We're investigating this stuff aggressively.
Nah, it was actually hilarious, because I remember how me and Sid would like Loki get into it over that. I'd be like, oh, was anything been done? Anything has been done? I'm like, oh, yes, it has. Now it has. They kicked in like over 200 doors, and they locked up a whole lot of people. So yes, something has finally been done about the rapid fraud that was going on in Minnesota when it comes to these Somali daycares and more. Finally, something has been done, and it took a little bit of time, but people has been arrested. And we served 22 subpoenas in 2 months after fraud ring was discovered in Minneapolis. Yes, we're talking about what Nick Shirley discovered.
Again, we're not the Biden administration.
We really just walked up, and they just had the fraud so blatant. It was just like in your face. Shoot, even a lot of the locals even knew what was going on with a lot of these daycares. They just said, well, nobody stops them, so it is what it is.
Prejudge the outcome, but I guarantee, unless something crazy is going on, I guarantee there's going to be some criminal wrongdoing that we're going to find, because there's so much wrongdoing. Somebody had to know what they were doing.
Staying once more on the topic of prosecutions, there's also a 2019 report from the Office of the Inspector General in Minnesota that is Tim Walz's time. And there's a whistleblower report in there. And the whistleblower said this. He was an investigator. He said it is a near certainty that at least a percentage of the fraud proceeds in Minnesota go overseas and are being siphoned off by one or more designated terrorist organizations. John Yoo, who worked in the Bush DOJ, told me that this should be given to the DOJ Counterterrorism and National Security Division. We need to know who transferred the money, if was anyone aiding and abetting, because that could be material support for terrorism. Is that the level of detail that you expect this administration?
Absolutely. That's a great idea. I haven't heard that, but we will immediately take that to the team because that should be a counterterrorism investigation. And this drives home something that I've loved about working on this fraud task force is, yeah, we've got a lot of resources and we're working very hard on this. Some of the best stuff, whether it's Nick Shirley or whether it's you raising that with me, citizens have a role to play in this. And we've actually set up a fraud hotline where people can call in and suggest that maybe they're seeing things that are not totally above board, because to fix this problem, it's so deep-seated, it's so broad. We actually need everybody to raise this stuff. We need citizen journalists. We need, Fox News reporters. We need everybody to be asking ourselves the question, how do we root out this fraud? Because it's hard to fathom. You pay your taxes.
I mean, easy. Actually make these. Here's the thing. It's like deep level when it comes to rooted in the city. Like, I mean, that's the problem here. There's city officials, state officials that are willing to let this fraud go on to keep their voting block. Like, that needs to be tackled. Like, there's really nothing that the federal government can do when it's at a city district level. We got to solve that first. If that means clearing out the leadership in there, so be it. Or maybe, of course, voting new people in that actually will abide by the law. But I mean, in these Democratic places or these Democrat states, I'm not sure how well that's going to work out. But yeah, we actually got to fix it on a district NC level if we actually want to stop the fraud, because it's those guys who are allowing it. And if they continuously allow it and they don't enforce inspections and all this good stuff, then there's really nothing we can do. Money's going to keep being fraudulently spent unless we do some type of overreach when it comes to securing or make sure these funds are going to the right place.
Goes to a terrorist when your country is trying to prevent those terrorists from
Lord
killing
knows
your
I don't
fellow
want that.
Americans. It is shocking, but it's the sort of thing that happens when the federal government turns a blind eye to this stuff.
It's stunning, and to know about that since 2019. Has Governor Gavin Newsom contacted you to assist you?
I think the only contact we've had with Gavin Newsom so far is him telling us that we're not allowed to stop the fraud, or in fact trying to sue us to stop the fraud. So no, we have not had a positive relationship with Gavin Newsom on this. But Kaylee, I say this with all transparency. I would love for that to change. I would love it if Gavin Newsom had a come to Jesus moment and said, you know what, I'm going to take this fraud issue seriously, because we would work with him. We've said that to everybody, Democrat or Republican. We want to work with you to root out the fraud, but you've actually got to help us out. Let me give you another crazy example. Do you know, I didn't know this until a couple of months ago, so no shame, that when your government gives out, let's say, $7 billion to California for food stamp benefits, it doesn't know a single recipient of those food stamps. Not a one, because it's block granted to the states, and then we trust the states that they're going to police fraud themselves. We have not gotten any help from Gavin Newsom or a number of other blue states when we're trying to police to make sure that dead people don't get SNAP benefits, to make sure that these food benefits go to low-income kids. That's what they're there for, not to fraudsters. We'd love to have that cooperation, but so far, not yet.
And final question, as Tim
And
Walz.
like I said, because at a district and city level, these people are the leadership there is allowing this to happen to maintain a certain voter group. And as long as they're doing it for the voter group, there's really nothing we can do. It's either we cleared out the leadership or they vote in somebody that's going to follow the law or enforce more inspections, but that's most likely not going to happen. So I kind of like what JD Vance is doing, pretty much, pausing it across the board, at the screeching of the Democrats. It is what it is, because we need to figure out, is this money actually being used for, setting it for? Because we can't keep doing this on the whole trust me, bro, of the doctors and these state officials, because they're not low-key doing their job.
Contacted you?
No, Tim Walz has not contacted me. I did see that he took credit when we did those 22 subpoenas that I mentioned, that the investigations that we're doing for the anti-fraud stuff in Minneapolis. Tim Walz did take credit for it, even though Tim Walz has not helped us at all. We've gotten some cooperation from local authorities, but from the governor's office, we really haven't gotten that cooperation. Again, we'd love to have it. This is so much easier when we work, whether it's a blue or red state, when we have the governors cooperating with us, and we do have that in some places. It goes a lot quicker, but we're going to go after fraud regardless if people are helping us or not.
Easier when it's bipartisan.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. The Vice Chair of the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force, Andrew Ferguson, joined me and Vice President J.D. Vance exclusively on that and more. Here's part 2 of my exclusive interview. We talk about addressing fraud from the back end with arrests, but how do you intend to address it through the front end? I know you've mentioned AI as a component.
So all the agencies are supposed to have anti-fraud prevention systems in place. The Biden administration turned a lot of those off and let them languish. And what we were able to do, basically sort of like building on the DOGE effort, is work with these agencies with the data that they have, the data that other agencies have, and publicly available data, and build technological solutions, most of which are AI-driven, that can take all of these data. And so when a claims payment request comes in, basically AI puts up a flag and says, very likely fraudulent. And all of the agencies have administrative authority to withhold those payments until they know that this is a real person that's actually qualifying for this request. If you have to do that by hand, if you have to have individuals go out and figure all these out, the money just goes out the door, and then you have to get DOJ to chase it. They can't get it all back. So using these advanced automated technological solutions, that's the way you supercharge the effort, and you keep the money in the agencies rather than watching it go out the door, chasing it. And the reality is, we've learned in this process, so much of this money that goes out the door leaves the country. It goes into the hands of like an immigrant here in America, and they send it to another country, including Somalia. That is why this is so important. It's got to stay in the agency, and AI is supercharging this.
No, that's actually facts. And shout out to my man user in the chat. Like, bro, they can honestly put up more anti-fraud laws. They can make a whole department for it that monitors all these transactions, actually send out people to do inspections, all from the government, all from just one department. So all these states just don't have, well, I would say oversight, or just pretty much have too much oversight over it, because they have all the oversight, we have none whatsoever, aka they're doing whatever the hell they want with these funds, basically allowing whoever to fraud the system. So yeah, if we don't have an actual like fraud department, that I guess this is what JD Vance is supposed to be doing. But if we don't have an actual one that can actually start invoking some laws to where these guys can go out and start enforcing things or start running these inspections, then this is going to constantly happen. Because like I said, it's at the district and city level that there are that their leadership is allowing this so they can maintain office, and they're going to continuously turn a blind eye, because they'll be voted out of office for the politician who will turn the blind eye. And if that's the case, then we just need to remove the option altogether, where nobody can run on turning a blind eye to fraud.
Dr. Oz has spoken about foreign governments getting taxpayer money. He's talked about the Cuban government in Florida. He's talked about the Russian mafia.
And guys, no, they're not just saying, oh, no, I'm going to support you guys doing fraud. No, they kind of covered up by saying that, oh, we stand by our Somali communities. We stand by our Nigerian communities. We stand by our Indian communities. As soon as they say they stand by a community, that's probably the community that's doing all the fraud that they're low-key trying to supplicate to, and be like, look, we stand by y'all no matter what you guys do.
Yeah, what have you seen?
We've definitely seen a number of
saying that all of them do it,
foreign terrorist organizations potentially benefiting from these resources, but oftentimes, it's somebody who will take money fraudulently from the federal government, let's say an illegal alien from Central America, and then send it back to a drug cartel or send it back to a sex trafficking ring. So it's, again, what I always try to remind people is there are so many layers of victims. There are the taxpayers who are being fleeced. There are these programs that are not getting, people cannot access these programs to get the benefits that they have earned. But at the same time, you've got the worst people in the world sometimes who are getting money from the American taxpayer. It's funding drug trafficking in Central America instead of ensuring that a low-income kid gets the food they need. It's insane, but it's something, again, that we allowed to happen for too long under the Biden administration. And now, thanks to the president, we've turned it back on, we've flipped the switch, and we're taking this stuff seriously in a way we never have before in the federal government.
Yeah, the pauses on new hospice, the letters to the blue states. What are your message to whistleblowers? We've had a whistleblower come on our show. We've had one who was too fearful to come forward for retaliation. What's your message to them?
Come to us. I mean, look, Nick Shirley was incredibly brave by going into those places, confronting those frauds.
Now, what was it? It was the Democrat lady that got shot in Minnesota, Melissa Horton, right? Right. So, you know what's so crazy? She was actually one of those people that was speaking up about, yo, we're recklessly giving support for these undocumented immigrants and a whole lot of fraudulent activity that's going on in, well, the state and the city. And for some reason, like, she was actually getting a lot of hate for voting against bills that would continue it. And then all of a sudden, she ends up dead. This is what people mean by, yo, there are whistleblowers that are afraid to come out because they've seen high up politicians get taken out over speaking about the same thing. I know a lot of Democrats missed this because they was too focused on the whole, right-wing violence. Well, actually, guys, it was all a ploy to hide the fact that, yo, she was actually speaking up against some BS that the Democrats were doing in there while giving, of course, when it came to undocumented immigrants and supporting a fraud, she was speaking out against that. And all of a sudden she ends up dead. Now, I'm not gonna say that Tim Walz did. I'm not gonna say that, it was some, I don't know, the deep state or something crazy like that. I'm just gonna say that it's kind of funny how that all played out.
And just shining a light. That is how this has to work, is Americans who are sick of their dollars vanishing from their pockets, not just from their pockets. Remember, with like we were talking about with the vice president in the press conference, these states are supposed to be using this money to stop elder abuse. These are our parents and grandparents that are supposed to be benefiting from this money, and they're just not. It's vanishing into the ether, or worse, it's going into the pockets of our adversaries. Whistleblowers can supercharge these efforts, both stopping it in the agencies and with the Department of Justice leading the prosecutorial effort. We have things in the works that we are going to incent whistleblowers to come forward, but whistleblowers should come forward, you'll be protected, and you will be doing your country an unbelievable service.
I look forward to seeing those incentives for whistleblowers.
Yeah, but if you couldn't protect a politician, what makes you think you could protect an everyday employee that just works around the fraud? If you couldn't even protect a politician.
Vice President J.D. Vance, I'm wondering if this surprises you. I had our Fox News brain room do an extensive search on AOC, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, and J.B. Pritzker. And they looked for the terms California, Minnesota, fraud, feeding our future, Medicaid, and hospice. And their conclusion was it appears most Democrats have sidestepped this issue. They could not find a single communication from Harris, AOC, Buttigieg, or Pritzker on the issue of fraud. Why not?
Well, because I think that so many of these people,
because they probably helped and aided in it them damn selves. Like, especially Kamala Harris being out of Florida, she probably looked past a couple fraudulent situations her damn self.
don't want to appreciate that, first of all, their constituencies are benefiting sometimes from the fraud.
Exactly.
How many illegal aliens vote in United States elections? I don't know the answer to that question, but we know that when they do vote, they typically are going to vote 90% for Democrats. If you look at the Somalia fraud ring in suburban Minneapolis, a lot of that money was being funded to Democratic caucuses, to left-wing NGOs. So we know that, unfortunately, many of the beneficiaries of fraud are actually, sometimes indirectly, the Democrat Party and the Democrat Party's leadership. I also just think that, this is not, unfortunately, this is not my grandmother's Democrat Party, right? This is not the party of sort of socially conservative, patriotic people. It's now the party of left-wing radicalism. And if you think that the government exists to fund benefits for illegal aliens, then of course you're not going to care about fraud. But if you think as we do, and as the president has ordered us to do, the American government exists for the benefits of the American people, you've got to take fraud seriously. I would love it if Democrats actually helped us. Some have, but unfortunately not the leadership of that party.
Vice President J.D. Vance, Vice Chair Andrew.
But all right, guys, let's go ahead and get into Speaker Mike Johnson. He has some words to say on Fox, of course. Let's get right into it.
Joining us now, Speaker Mike Johnson. Speaker, always good to have you back on Fox News Sunday.
Shannon, great to be with you. What a great day this is going to be out on the National Mall. Great.
Yeah, and we have some sound issues, so we're going to use our fancy mics to make sure that we can hear each other. It is very old school. Okay, so the overall assessment from the China trip seems to be like no harm done. The president talks about agriculture and other agreements that we have with China, but no joint statement. China doesn't always live up to the promises that they make. What more would you like to see as fallout from this particular trip?
Well, the president was, I think, pleased with the outcome of the visit. He thinks it was a big success, and the people that were on that trip agree. We have laid the groundwork, I think, for a new trade agreement, which I know Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, and the president have been working on in earnest. We're very hopeful about that. I will say it makes a big difference who serves in the White House, right? You have a commander-in-chief who is not afraid of China as a threat. He's facing this head on, and he's made it very clear to everybody around the world, America cannot be taken advantage of any longer. It's an America first agenda, meaning American workers and American companies and manufacturers first. And I think Xi respects that. And so we'll see what comes out of it. We're very hopeful.
What do you
Yeah, but you can't really say he's putting America workers first when he's still committed to bringing over 600,000 Chinese students. That's going to take 600,000 slots in American colleges and 600,000 positions in American jobs. So, how is that benefiting us again?
make of those critics who say, though, listen, the U.S. is in a tougher economic position, that China has an upper hand, that
Break it
they
down,
feel
please. One more time.
strong. They felt strong coming into this conversation. And because of some of the tough economic issues and other things that we're having here, that the president wasn't at the highest level of leverage he could have been.
Well, I don't know. I think that was a central part of the conversation because much of this economic trouble that we have right now, of course, is related directly to the Strait of Hormuz. And the president and Xi had a good discussion about that situation. And we're hopeful that they'll help. They have a direct interest in commerce being open in the Strait of Hormuz as much as we do. In fact, every country around the world. So we've got to get that sorted out.
Well, and the president.
Yeah, but here's a problem though. Like China, they're not that big in a rush. Like I wish they were in the same rush as we were, but they're not. I mean, I'll go ahead and I'll bring up this map again if it will go ahead and load for me. Like Jesus. But I'll go ahead and bring up the map again on why this blockade isn't really stressing out China. And we could just go to this nice little world map right here. You can see how this blockade is not really hurting China whatsoever. Because look, Iran, they can go through their ally Pakistan and get into China that way. They can take the Caspian Sea. I mean, they can go ahead and get into Russia through the Caspian Sea. Then they have a railway in Kazakhstan that goes from Kazakhstan into China. So they have multiple ways they can get to their biggest buyer outside of the Strait of Hormuz. As I keep saying, this whole blockade isn't working the way they say it is. And if you understand geography, well, it's quite obviously in your face.
President said that President Xi actually offered to help, and he said,
I
no,
wish it
thank
was
you. He
working.
told our rep Barry, said, if somebody helps you, then they always want something on the other side. So he doesn't want to take the help. But there's also this issue of reports that China is backdoor helping Iran. What more should we be doing to address that?
Well, that would be a concern if it's true. And I think we're trying to sort all that out. Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Okay. They have wreaked havoc around the world. They've killed hundreds of Americans over the last few decades. We've got to make sure that we get that sorted out. And every freedom-loving person around the world and all of our NATO allies and, of course, the Middle Eastern neighbors over there in that region have a direct interest in that. So we should all work together to get it done.
So let's talk.
Yeah, look, nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon, but everybody also understood that, the more aggressive actions you take towards Iran, the closer you push them towards a nuclear weapon. So if the goal is to make sure that they don't have a nuclear weapon, then why are we doing everything that pushes them towards one? It's like, come on now, the common sense of it now.
Talk about this issue of Taiwan. Obviously, China said it was front and center for them. That was what they wanted to talk about. They see it as kind of the biggest friction point between the U.S. The president said everybody needs to cool it. Nobody needs to start anything. We're hearing from Taiwan's president this morning saying a number of things, saying continued arms sales from the U.S. are necessary for them to maintain their position. Wall Street Journal editorial board after the trip said this. The test for Mr. Trump now will be whether he releases a long-awaited U.S. arms sale to Taiwan. Mr. Xi wants a veto over those sales, but Taiwan needs U.S. weapons as a deterrent as it works to reach its goal of spending 5% of its economy on defense by 2030.
But here's the thing, though. We won't one. I mean, if they order the weapons, won't be able to get it to them until 4 or 5 years later. And let's be real. I mean, China could attack within 1-2 years, and they'll be able to take Taiwan. Why? Because we sacrificed defense of Taiwan for this conflict with Iran. And trust me, if we get back into kinetic strikes with them, then I'm be real with you. I wouldn't be too far of the outside the realm of possibility if China was to try to take Taiwan while we're dealing with Iran. I mean, it'd be pretty damn smart too, because what the hell we gonna do about it? Nothing. We won't have no munitions to put towards it.
So couple that with the comments we heard from Taiwan's president this morning.
Well, look, we've been wary of China's objectives there for quite some time. Of course, the U.S. military and every president has been watching this closely, and we continue to do so. I saw the statement from Taiwan. I thought that was a reasonable thing for the leader there to say. They've got to flex their muscle a little bit and declare again that they are an independent country and they must remain so. We have an interest in that, as again do all freedom-loving people around the world. China cannot just go take over land, and we're going to stand strong and resolute by that. I know the Congress will.
Yeah, but let's be real, dog. We kind of lost some real high ground on that because we preemptively struck Iran. just like Russia preemptively went after Ukraine. I mean, and just like China can preemptively go after Taiwan. Like, we've lost a mile high ground with this war in Iran alone. Like, well, we don't think that countries should just invade other countries or just start striking them. I think they should reach diplomatic means. Meanwhile, we do everything that we criticize other countries for doing. Like, we've lost the argument against Russia because of this war. And we vindicated North Korea because of this war.
Okay, well, speaking of Congress, I want to read something from one of your Democrat colleagues because they say Congress needs to be doing more with respect to this conflict. Congressman Jimmy Panetta, he's a Democrat out of California, says Congress must reclaim its constitutional authority over the Iran war. Speaker Mike Johnson has abdicated Congress's role and failed to exercise any oversight this administration, saying that's given President Trump free rein to conduct a military campaign in Iran. He says it's based on an incoherent and inconsistent strategy. What should Congress's role be right now?
Jimmy's a friend and colleague, but he's clearly wrong on this. Okay, this is not time for War Powers Act. Operation Epic Fury has been declared concluded, and it is, and now we're into a new project, and that is to get the Strait of Hormuz open. This is about diplomacy and negotiation. You don't have kinetic warfare right now. You don't have missiles flying around, and so we've got to allow the administration time to finish this and sort it out. And
how much time?
Well, we'll see. I mean, this is a day-by-day development. The president has his hands on this every single day. The Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, everybody is involved. They're pushing it as aggressively as they can. The challenge has been in Iran, as I explain to everybody all the time, is we took out about 4 layers of leadership there. So they've needed some time to sort out who has the authority to get this straight. But I'm very optimistic about it. I've talked to allied nations around the world. They want to assist in this as well, getting commerce open so gas prices come back down to planet Earth. We get back to the economic issues and the conditions that we've set in place, the Republican-led Congress, to allow all boats to rise, so to speak, in the economy. We're excited about that.
What do you say to your Democratic counterparts who say by taking out those levels of leadership that we've ended up with a more radical group now who really doesn't?
Well, they speak in facts. That's what I tell her. Like, well, those guys are speaking facts. I'm sorry to say that. Yeah, we did take out a moderate regime who was willing to give up their enrichment, who was willing to work with the United States, and we pretty much killed all of them. And now we got a bunch of hardliners. Now we got a bunch of extremists who are way more extreme than the original Ayatollah. And now we're trying to convince the American people that, oh no, we actually got moderates. Actually, we bombed them into moderacy. No, we bombed them even into being more hardliners against the West. Like, it's kind of insane how people think that we literally bombed ourselves into a more, bomb them into a more moderate regime, when no, we bombed them into being a more hardline regime. And that's kind of how it works all the time. The more aggressive you are towards somebody or a group of people, the more they kind of buck back against you. That's kind of always how it worked. And I don't know why you guys think it would work differently with Iran. But I mean, all right, though, you keep thinking that.
Seem to be interested in actually negotiating an end to this.
Well, I think it's premature to evaluate what we have now. That's the problem. We're not sure exactly who is in charge. There is a new Ayatollah, but he's not been seen since the conflict began. So we'll see how it's sorted out. I know that there are negotiations going on in earnest. I know that the president is on this every single day. We're pushing it as aggressively as we can because we know that gas prices, we're acutely aware of what that means to American families, and we got to get that settled out. And I can tell you that the entire administration and all of us in Congress, Republicans, are working on that.
Okay, I want to get to redistricting because this case that came from the Supreme Court was out of Louisiana, of course. So it's now opened the door for a number of states, many of them in the South, to talk about redistricting. Here is the reaction to all of that from some of your Democrat colleagues.
This is a great turnaround and a turn back to Jim Crow era politics in the 50s.
We're looking at losing possibly 19 members of the Congressional Black Caucus because of this, frankly, racist redistricting efforts targeted towards disenfranchising Black voters across the country.
Here's the worst part about that. They kind of pretend like Black voters can't vote conservatively. That's what kills me. It's like, could it just be that those voters in those Black areas, they could be leaning conservative since you guys constantly fail them through high taxes on their communities, let them to go through high crime, high immigration through their communities. You don't ever think that maybe just after years of being constantly screwed over by, the Democratic Party, they would probably go a different direction? Does it have to be, oh no, it's racism, they're trying to cover up their voices? Or maybe you guys just fucked up so much with them, they're going the other way. Could it be that? Could it just be that?
So what is your message to Black Americans, Black voters about this redistricting?
The Supreme Court issued a long-awaited opinion, and I think it was long overdue, and they stated the obvious that drawing congressional lines must be fair. You cannot draw lines on the basis of race, and that's what was done in Louisiana. So they declared it to be an unconstitutional gerrymander, and it was. This brings back fairness and certainty to the system, and I think a lot of states are looking to make sure that their maps are not unconstitutional like Louisiana's was.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on
All right,
YouTube and
here.
catch full shows streaming now.